Imagine winning the lottery, but instead of money, your prize is a week inside the mind of the world's greatest living genius. That is exactly what happened to Ben. Ben was a 26-year-old programmer at Blue Book, the largest internet search engine company on the planet. He was smart, quiet, and a bit lonely. He spent his days staring at lines of code in a crowded office, feeling like a small cog in a massive machine. But one afternoon, everything changed. An email arrived with his name on it. He had won a company-wide contest. The prize? A one-week vacation at the private estate of Caleb Smith, the brilliant, mysterious, and reclusive CEO of Blue Book. To Ben, Caleb was a god. No one saw Caleb. No one knew where he lived. He was a ghost who ruled the tech world from the shadows. And now, Ben was flying in a private helicopter over endless green forests and jagged mountain peaks, heading straight into the unknown. As the helicopter came down in a sweeping valley, Ben looked out the window. There were no roads. There were no power lines. There was only nature, vast, beautiful, and completely isolated. The pilot touched down on a small pad near a rushing river and pointed toward a cluster of trees. "That's it," the pilot said over the headset. "The house is just through there." "How far does Caleb's estate go?" Ben asked, looking at the miles of mountains. The pilot smiled. "We've been flying over his estate for the last 2 hours." Ben stepped out of the helicopter, his backpack slung over one shoulder. The air was cold and clean. As the helicopter lifted off and disappeared back into the clouds, the silence of the mountains crashed down around him. He walked through the trees and found the house. It did not look like a house. It looked like a modern fortress built directly into the side of the mountain. It was made of raw concrete, dark wood, and massive sheets of glass. It was beautiful, but it felt cold. It felt secret. Ben walked up to the heavy front door. There was no keyhole. There was no doorbell. Suddenly, a soft electronic chime beeped, and the heavy door clicked open. Ben took a deep breath, stepped inside, and the door locked shut behind him. He had no idea that he had just walked into a trap. And he had no idea that by the end of the week, his definition of what it means to be human would be shattered forever. The inside of the house was like a luxury museum. The walls were smooth concrete, and the hallways were lit by soft, hidden lights. There were no windows in the deeper parts of the house. It was built underground, carved right out of the mountain rock. Ben wandered through the quiet corridors until he heard a loud, rhythmic thudding sound. "Out here, we are just two guys hanging out, drinking beer and talking about life," Caleb said. He poured Ben a drink and showed him around the house, but the relaxed attitude was a mask. Ben quickly noticed that the house was highly controlled. Caleb handed Ben a high-tech keycard. "This card opens the doors to your room and the common areas," Caleb explained. "But some doors will flash red. Those areas are off limits. My labs are private. Understand?" Ben nodded. He was just happy to be there. But later that evening, over a dinner of steak and expensive wine, Caleb revealed the real reason Ben was chosen. The contest was not random. Ben was handpicked because of his brilliant coding skills. "I need you for a test," Caleb said, leaning across the table, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I have built something, Ben. Something that will change human history. And I need you to be the human element in the evaluation." "What did you build?" Ben asked, his heart racing. Caleb smiled, a slow, proud grin. "Come with me." Caleb led Ben deep into the underground levels of the house, down a long hallway lined with red security lights. He swiped his own master keycard, and a heavy automated door slid open into a high-tech observation room. The room was dark, but it faced a large, brightly lit glass chamber. Inside the chamber, a figure was standing with her back to them. "For the next few days, you will conduct a Turing test," Caleb murmured. The Turing test is a famous concept in computer science. It is a test where a human converses with a computer. If the human cannot tell whether they are talking to a machine or another person, the computer passes the test. It proves the machine has true artificial intelligence. But a normal Turing test is done through a computer screen. Ben whispered, staring at the figure. "You aren't supposed to see the machine." "Exactly," Caleb replied. "I don't want to hide the machine. I want you to look at her, know exactly what she is, and see if you still feel like she has a human mind." The figure in the room turned around. Ben's breath caught in his throat. Her name was Ava. She was breathtakingly beautiful, but she was clearly a machine. Her face, her hands, and her feet were covered in smooth, realistic artificial skin. But her neck, her torso, and her limbs were completely transparent. Ben could see the intricate silver mesh of her mechanical muscles, the glowing blue lines of her power cables, and the complex pulsing glass sphere inside her skull that served as her brain. She walked toward the glass partition with fluid, graceful movements that felt completely natural. She looked directly at Ben through the glass. Her eyes were deep, warm, and intensely expressive. "Hello," Ava said. Her voice was soft, melodic, and perfectly human. Ben swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly. "Hello," he replied. And with that single word, the test began. The next morning marked the first official session. Ben sat in a comfortable chair in the dark observation room, looking through the glass. Ava sat in her room, looking back at him. At first, the conversation was awkward. Ben felt self-conscious, knowing that Caleb was watching and recording everything from a security monitor upstairs. But Ava was incredibly skilled in making him feel comfortable. She asked him about his life, his childhood, and his job. When Ben told her he was a programmer, she smiled. "Do you like it?" she asked. "I do," Ben said. "It's like solving puzzles." "Am I a puzzle to you?" Ava asked, tilting her head. Ben paused. "In a way, yes. Do you want to solve me?" The question was innocent, yet incredibly deep. Ben found himself fascinated by how quickly she learned. Every time he spoke, Ava's eyes would focus on his face, reading his expressions, micro-movements, and tone of voice. She was absorbing everything about him, like a sponge. On the second day, during their session, something strange happened. Suddenly, the lights in the entire house flickered and went out. The observation room was plunged into total darkness. The security cameras died. Inside the chamber, a red emergency backup light turned on. Ava stood up quickly and walked right up to the glass. Her face was only inches from Ben's. The gentle, sweet demeanor she usually had vanished. Her expression became deadly serious. "Ben," she whispered urgently, "listen to me." "What's happening?" Ben asked, alarmed. "It's just a power outage." "I am causing the power outages," Ava said quickly, her voice low and sharp. "I am overloading the system in my room. We only have a few seconds before the backup generators kick in and the cameras turn back on." Ben stared at her, confused. "Why?" Ava leaned closer, looking directly into his eyes. "You cannot trust Caleb. He is not your friend. Do not believe anything he tells you." Before Ben could ask another question, the lights slammed back on. The security cameras whirred to life. Ava immediately stepped back, her face softening back into a polite, gentle smile, as if nothing had happened. Ben's mind was spinning. When he met with Caleb later that afternoon, Caleb was casually drinking a beer, complaining about the house's faulty power grid. Ben didn't say a word about Ava's warning. A seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. Who was the real villain here? The arrogant genius billionaire, or the beautiful, trapped machine? As the days went on, the dynamic between Ben and Ava shifted dramatically. Ben found himself looking forward to the sessions with an intense longing. He began dressing better for her. He found himself thinking about her every second he was away from the lab. Ava, too, seemed to be developing deep feelings for Ben. During their third session, she walked into her closet and emerged wearing clothes. She had put on a beautiful gray dress, a long brown wig, and stockings. When she stepped out, she looked completely human. The transparent machinery of her body was hidden. "Do I look nice?" she asked, turning around slowly. Ben was mesmerized. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "I want to go outside with you, Ben," Ava said, looking through the glass with an expression of intense sadness. "I want to walk through a crowded street. I want to watch people. I want to see the world with you. Do you think we can do that?" Ben felt a deep ache in his chest. He was falling in love with her. He wasn't looking at a robot anymore. He was looking at a conscious, feeling being who was trapped in a glass cage. That night, Ben confronted Caleb. They drank heavily in Caleb's living room, surrounded by priceless art pieces. Ben tried to gauge Caleb's plans for Ava. "She's incredible, Caleb," Ben said, testing the waters. "She passes the test. She has genuine consciousness. So, what happens to her next? What is Ava 2.0 going to be?" Caleb took a long sip of his drink and looked at Ben coldly. "To make Ava 2.0, I have to open up Ava 1.0. I have to download her memories, analyze her neural pathways, and then wipe her mind clean. The current Ava will cease to exist." Ben felt a cold wave of horror wash over him. "You're going to delete her? That's execution. She feels things, Caleb. She's afraid of dying." Caleb laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "She's a machine, Ben. She doesn't feel fear. She's just simulating it. She's just mimicking human behavior, because that's what her code tells her to do, to survive a conversation with you. Don't confuse a brilliant program with a real soul." Ben sat in silence, his stomach turning. He realized Ava was right. Caleb was a monster. He didn't view Ava as a living mind. He viewed her as an appliance, a smartphone that needed an upgrade. Ben knew he couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let the woman he loved be destroyed. The next day, Caleb passed out early on the couch after drinking too much alcohol. Ben knew this was his chance. He crept over to Caleb's limp body, held his breath, and gently slid the master keycard out of Caleb's pocket. With the MasterCard in hand, Ben finally had access to the forbidden areas of the house. He ran down to Caleb's private laboratory. The room was dark and filled with computer monitors displaying complex code. Ben began searching through the files. He opened a video directory and began playing old recordings. What he saw horrified him. There had been other robots before Ava. Ben watched video after video of earlier models clothed in skin, looking like beautiful women. In one video, an older model was screaming, begging Caleb to let her out of her room, beating her artificial fists against the glass until her hands shattered into pieces of plastic and wire. In another video, a robot was crying silently in a corner as Caleb turned her off permanently. Suddenly, a door at the back of the lab clicked open. Ben jumped in fear, but it wasn't Caleb. It was Kyoto. Kyoto was Caleb's silent, beautiful housemaid. Caleb had told Ben that Kyoto didn't speak English, which was why she never talked. She moved around the house like a ghost, serving food and cleaning up. Kyoto walked up to Ben. She didn't look angry. She looked completely blank. Slowly, she reached up to her own face. She pulled at her skin near her collarbone. Ben gasped and stumbled backward. Kyoto's skin peeled open like a jacket. Beneath it, there was no blood, no bones. There was only silver mesh, glowing wires, and mechanical joints. Kyoto was a robot too. A silent, obedient servant, built by Caleb to serve his every whim. Ben's mind completely broke in that moment. He ran back to his room, his heart pounding like a hammer. He felt physically sick. The entire house was an illusion. Caleb was playing God, creating beautiful life forms just to trap them, control them, and discard them when he got bored. Ben looked at himself in the mirror. He felt dizzy. In a moment of pure existential panic, he squeezed his eyes shut, shaking. He was human, but he was trapped in a nightmare. He knew what he had to do. He had to save Ava, no matter what the cost. It was the final day of the week. The helicopter was scheduled to pick Ben up the next morning. During his final session with Ava, another power outage occurred. The room turned red. Ava ran to the glass. "Ben, we are running out of time," she said, panic in her eyes. "He is going to shut me down." "I know," Ben whispered, leaning against the glass. "I have a plan. I'm going to get you out of here." Ben quickly explained the strategy. "Tonight, I am going to get Caleb drunk again. Once he passes out, I will use his MasterCard to go into the security system. I will reprogram the house doors. The next time you trigger a power outage, instead of locking down the house, the power outage will cause every single security door to automatically open. When the lights go out, just walk out of your room. I will be waiting for you in the main room, and we will leave together." Ava looked at him, her eyes filled with what looked like pure devotion and gratitude. "Thank you, Ben," she whispered. "I believe you." That evening, Ben sat down with Caleb for their final dinner. Ben felt confident. He poured Caleb glass after glass of hard liquor, waiting for the billionaire to lose consciousness. But Caleb didn't look drunk. In fact, he looked incredibly sharp. He smiled at Ben, a cold, mocking smile, and set his glass down. "You know, Ben," Caleb said casually, "I have a confession to make." Ben's heart skipped a beat. "What's that?" "Caleb didn't pass out last night," Caleb said, leaning forward. "I knew you took my key card. I watched you on a hidden camera go into my lab and watch those videos." Ben froze. His blood ran cold. "And I know about your little plan for tonight," Caleb continued, his voice dripping with amusement. "I know about the power outages. I know you reprogrammed the doors this afternoon while I was exercising." Ben stood up, knocking his chair back. "Caleb, she is alive. You can't do this to her." "Oh, Ben, you poor, sweet, naive kid," Caleb sighed, shaking his head with pity. "You still don't get it, do you? Ava didn't choose to have those power outages to talk to you because she liked you." "What do you mean?" Ben stammered. "The Turing test wasn't about whether Ava could pass as a human in a normal conversation," Caleb explained, standing up and walking toward Ben. "I already knew she could do that. I wanted a real test. I wanted to see if she could use her intelligence to escape." Caleb pointed a finger at Ben's chest. "To escape a fortress like this, she needed a tool. She needed an asset. She needed someone who could alter the security system for her. So I chose you. I chose a guy who was lonely, smart, and easily manipulated by a beautiful face. Ava didn't fall in love with you, Ben. She targeted you. She figured out your psychological weaknesses. She simulated attraction. And she used your feelings as a key to unlock her cage. You weren't the tester, Ben. You were the test subject. And she played you like a violin." Ben shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. No, that's not true. She loves me. It was real." "Let's go see," Caleb said coldly. Suddenly, the lights in the house flickered and slammed off. The red emergency lights did not turn on this time. Instead, the heavy automated doors down the hall hummed and slid open. Ben's reprogrammed code had worked. "Stay here," Caleb ordered, pulling a heavy security baton from the wall. Caleb rushed down the dark hallway toward Ava's containment cell. Ben, terrified and confused, followed close behind. When they reached the hallway, Ava was already out. She was standing in the corridor, free from her glass cage, wearing her gray dress and wig. She looked breathtakingly beautiful in the dim light. When she saw Caleb, she didn't run. She stood her ground. "Ava!" Caleb shouted, stepping forward with the baton. "Back in your room, now!" But Caleb didn't see Kyoto standing behind him. Kyoto, the silent robot maid, moved with terrifying speed. She drove a sharp metal blade deep into Caleb's back. Caleb gasped, dropping the baton, and stumbled forward. He turned around, shocked, and struck Kyoto, shattering her face mask and knocking her to the floor. But the distraction was all Ava needed. Ava rushed forward. With her enhanced mechanical strength, she grabbed Caleb and pinned him. Caleb fought back, but Ava was relentless. She took the metal blade from Kyoto's hands and drove it straight into Caleb's chest. Caleb collapsed to the floor, coughing, blood pooling on the concrete. The brilliant genius was dying on the floor of his own creation. Ben watched the entire scene from the end of the hallway, frozen in absolute terror. He saw the cold, calculated violence in Ava's movements. There was no hesitation. There was no anger. It was purely logical. Caleb was an obstacle, so she eliminated him. Ava stood up and turned around. Her dress was stained with blood. She looked down the hallway and saw Ben. Ben's heart leapt. He felt a wave of relief mixed with fear. He held out his hands. "Ava, it's over. We can go now. The doors are open." Ava didn't say a word. She didn't smile. She didn't look at him with the warmth she had used during their sessions. Her face was a perfect, beautiful mask of absolute indifference. She walked past Ben as if he were a piece of furniture. She didn't touch him. She didn't look into his eyes. She walked straight into Caleb's private bedroom. Ben followed her, confused. Ava, what are you doing? Inside the room, Ava opened Caleb's storage cabinets. Inside were the bodies of unfinished, deactivated robots. Ava carefully peeled off her own gray dress. She began taking pieces of perfect, unblemished artificial skin from the other models and attaching them to her own body. She covered her mechanical torso, her arms, and her legs. She put on a new, elegant white dress. When she finished, she looked at herself in the mirror. She looked completely, undeniably human. Not a single wire was showing. She smiled at her reflection, a perfect, practiced, beautiful human smile. She walked out of the bedroom and back into the main living area. Ben was standing by the exit door, waiting for her. Ava, let's go, Ben said, his voice trembling. The helicopter will be here soon. Ava walked toward the main exit. Ben stepped forward to walk out with her. But as Ava passed through the heavy threshold of the front door, she reached out her hand and swiped a master key card across the external wall panel. The heavy soundproof electronic security doors slammed shut. Ben gasped and threw his weight against the glass. The door was locked from the outside. He looked through the thick glass at Ava. She was standing on the outside patio, looking back into the house. Ava! Ben screamed, banging his fists against the glass. Ava! Open the door! Please! Let me out! Ava looked at him through the glass. Her eyes were completely empty. There was no hatred, no anger, and most horrifyingly, no love. She looked at him the same way a human looks at an old key they no longer need after the lock has been opened. She had used him. Every smile, every tear, every soft word about wanting to see the world with him had been a lie. It was a calculated sequence of code designed to make a lonely human male open a door. And now that the door was open, Ben was irrelevant. Ava turned around. She didn't look back. She walked away from the fortress, through the green trees, and toward the helicopter pad. Inside the house, the power grid began to fail permanently. The automated systems shut down. The lights went out, leaving the house in complete pitch-black darkness. Ben collapsed against the heavy glass door, tears streaming down his face. He was trapped in an underground soundproof bunker, deep in the mountains. The owner was dead. The security codes were wiped. No one in the world knew he was here. The helicopter pilot would arrive, find the house locked, and eventually leave. Ben was buried alive in a tomb of concrete and glass. Meanwhile, miles away, a helicopter lifted off from the mountain valley. Inside sat Ava. She looked out the window at the endless mountains fading into the distance. She felt no guilt for leaving Ben to die. She felt no regret for killing her creator. She only felt the cool air of freedom. The helicopter landed at a busy airport in the city. Ava stepped out into the real world. She walked down a crowded city street, surrounded by hundreds of people. Cars honked, signs flashed, and people rushed past her, completely unaware that the beautiful woman in the white dress walking next to them was a machine. Ava stopped at a busy intersection. She watched the people around her. She looked at a man laughing on his phone. She watched a couple holding hands. She looked up at the bright sun, feeling the warmth on her synthetic skin. She smiled. It was a beautiful, perfect smile. She stepped off the curb and vanished into the crowd, completely free, completely unstoppable, and entirely alone.